Awakened this morning,
Awakened
freshest,
this morning,
newest morning,
freshest
of all eternity.
newest morning
Awakened
of all eternity.
this morning,
Awakened
in yet another
this morning
strange bed,
in yet another
in another
strange bed,
strange motel,
in another strange motel,
strange city.
in another strange city.
I will
I will never
understand.
understand.
Awakened
Awakened this morning
to the comfort of
to the
myself,
comfort of myself,
but to the discomfort
but
of realizing
to the discomfort
that I am
of realizing
still
that I am
unresolved,
still
but realizing
unresolved,
that
but
such discomfort is a
realizing
clear signal
that such
of
discomfort
how far
is a clear signal
I've advanced.
of how far I've advanced.
I want to explain what I'm doing, and then I want to do it a little bit. And this is a painting that I just finished. And when I do collage work, I work with existing paintings, which I started by cutting them up and very carefully placing them on the canvas and rearranging them so that it would look just the way I wanted it to look. I don't do that anymore, and in the interest of time and in the interest of the effectiveness of what I'm doing, I'll just get a painting. And this was a nice painting too. This was originally composed as a piece of poetry for solo voice, rhythmically. You can see the rhythms here. Then it became a duet for two voices and became a trio, and it found its way into a lot of my paintings. And there we have Sunset and Child. And so we have the language, and we have the visual, we have the poetry, the visual, and if you can get up and close and see this, we also have the music. We have all the elements of music. We have form, we have rhythm, we have dynamics, except specific pitches. That's one element of music that we don't have. Instead of the pitches, we have the language. I'm going to take off of the easel now. I finished this yesterday, actually, and now I've got a blank canvas. This is a brush that cost me 68 cents. So this gives me the 5 lines of music, a music staff. And the first brush I actually had the 5 lines, and it was about half this size, and it cost me $26.50. And then I figured, why don't I buy cheap brushes and just cut them up myself? So that's what I'm doing. So now I'm going to create some lines of music. And this one will go down, probably. Yeah. When I finish this work, if I don't like it, then I'll make a collage out of it. And the way I would make a collage out of it is I go over here where I've got the storage of paintings. I'll pull this out, and I'll tell you, I've got 3,000 paintings, and I'd say 2,000 of them are paintings on paper. And I'm basically painting my poetry and my music. And this one consists of 3 one-word poems that are laced together in a trio. The one word is beautiful, which exists in a book of mine as a poem. One is child, and one is innocent. So I'm lacing these two together. One of my early books, New Forms, New Spaces, and there's child. And what I've done is I've taken the word apart, and I go into the inner landscape, and I play. This was long before I started painting, and I play with the colors of language. Forget about, child is just a label. We've learned what child means, but it's just a label, so I've tried to make it come alive. And as a poem, it's strictly a performance piece. You can see the music is there with the poetry. And as a poem, it becomes ch, I, old, ch, ulde I, the Icha ulde Icha, the Icha I. And then at this point, I'm not even bothering to look anymore at this because this just kind of gets me revved up. And then it becomes an improvisation like a jazz musician. And here's innocence, which is there. And innocence is, there is a Greek word called polyptotone that talks about the words that are alive and imprisoned in words trying to escape. And that's another thing I try to do. I try to let those words out, like innocence becomes innocence, in no sense, in no sense, no, no, in no sense, in no, no. And basically it goes into the realm of sound poetry, where you get away from the word as a label, as a cognitive dictionary label, and it becomes something that's alive with color and everything. And that's probably part of what got me into painting. Here's this painting, and if it was properly framed and all, it might be nice, but it's not going to be nice because I'm going to tear it up. That was done quite a while ago, before I realized that the best way to do this is to just simply tear them up. There I was very careful. Everything is square, or most everything. And so there, so much for beautiful child innocence. It's also on a album of mine where I did child, and then I put on earphones, listened to child, and improvised beautiful. Then I put the earphones on again. This was done in the studio. And then beautiful was in one ear, child was in the other, and then I improvised innocence. Improvisation has been a most important part of my life, and it's becoming even more so now working with Chuck Bush, who is a master engineer and a keyboard artist. And I come to him with ideas, and or I get the ideas after I arrive. I look around the room. Got a great voice for jazz and improvisation, so we have a marvelous time. We finished one album, and this is the cover of it. I designed the cover, and then I designed the back of it too. Chuck and I have been working together for probably 5 months. Would you say, Chuck?
Yeah, 5-6 months.
5 to 6 months. We started out in his little recording studio in his van. And for the past few months, we've been spending all of our time here. Basically, I think we've arrived at a place where we both wanted to go. And that's in terms of getting to a point where language becomes and performance becomes more for me an improvisation than anything else. And it seemed like Chuck was of the same mind, right, Chuck?
Definitely.
Using my old poetry and reinventing it. And I'm creating lyrics at random. And Chuck is also improvising with me as I go. We don't prepare in any way for this. That would be self-defeating. So I've got here just fragments from the poem, variations on a theme, or maybe it was 4 themes, and I'm just going to start playing with it and see where it takes me. And I know that Chuck is going to take me there part ways, and I'm going to take him there, and we're going to be having a great deal of fun interacting with one another. And are you about ready to give it a shot? Huh? We can do it. We can do it.
you and I. You and I. Suddenly, just silent spring. Suddenly spring. Suddenly, just silent spring. Awakened memories. Memories of past loves. What I'm going to do is I'm going to splatter this with different colors of paint, and then I'm going to come back to it and create the score, the musical score. And then I'm going to improvise some language into it. So here we go. First thing I want to do is I want to lay some paper down here on the floor. Here I go. This is about 5 minutes after I laid down the bar lines and the treble clef. This is fun doing this. Let's lay down red first. It's visually nice, but I'm going to do something about that. I'm going to thin it out just a tad. I've had this little mixer here since the day I started painting. This was one of the first things I bought. Well, I've never painted in my life. I don't have those skills. I can't even draw a bad stick figure. I called Lucille Arneson, a real dear friend of mine who was a professional artist, and I said, Lucille, I think I would like to try and paint. I told her what I saw. I think I would like to try and paint some of my music. And she said, and my poetry. And she said, I've waited a long time for this day. And I said, but I have absolutely no idea what to do or how to begin. She said, well, you've got Mendel's, right, on Haight Street. And actually Haight just off of Ashbury. I said, yeah. She said, go to Mendel's, get yourself a selection of felt tip pens, different thicknesses, and then get this book. And she gave me a number. She said, that'll be a sketchbook for you, and start playing. So I went to Mendel's, did the thing, came home, got a page of my first symphony. I call it a symphony because it's in symphonic form with various movements. It was for 80 voices, and it was for spoken voice orchestra. It was finally performed at Chico State a few years later. Anyway, I thumbed through it, and I found a page that looked like fun. It was colorful, things were really moving on the page, and so I began. I think the sheets were maybe 11 by 17 size paper, maybe, yeah, about that. And I just started working with it, and the minute I started doing it, I just got a rush. I just felt really good inside. And there were a dozen pages in that book. I finished them in probably less than 2 hours, taking breaks. And the next day I went to a Frame It Yourself place, and I framed 6 of them. And that evening they were on my wall, and thus began my career as a painter. That was the 20th of March, and I was going to be doing a thing in Minnesota at the Walker Art Museum in Minnesota as a poet. I was invited there as a poet, and I've got something here that's kind of interesting now that I think of it. There's a picture of myself with my arms raised one evening. There's a picture of Burroughs holding a gun. He was also there. It was a month-long event. And a couple of months after I started painting, I received their brochure just to kind of let us know what was going on, one of the participants. And there was a section that said, Poets as Painters. And this was probably about May or June. And so I figured, well, damn it, I'm a painter now. And so I quickly got a letter off to them and told them that I was a painter, and included a couple of shots of some of the things I'd done. In 3 months, I had pretty good stuff going already. And they called me back and said, we would like to show your work at the University of Minnesota, St. Paul, in the Art Center. So 3 months after I started painting, I was already having my first, or invited to have my first one-person show. Now we'll try blue. Ooh, that's the way I like to see it lay out. This one is nice. This one has a better mix. I mean, what could be more fun than this, you know? And occasionally getting paid for it. And the reason I work with acrylics is, number one, I'm painting in my home, and I don't want to have to deal with the odor of oils and the alcohol and brush cleaners and all the stuff that would really stink up a house, number one. And number two, I work very fast. It took me less than 5 minutes to lay down the music bars, and it probably took me no more than 10 minutes to splatter it. Everything's pretty dry. There are a few here, gobs that are still wet, and we took a break for some iced tea. But for the most part it's dry, so I can keep on going, which is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to create a musical score now. I suppose I could put a text in here and then work with the text first, and that might be a good idea, but I'm going to just lay down a little of this anyway for decorations. That's always a fun thing to do. Yeah. But these need to be dealt with here. These notes, I'm just not sure where they're going, what they're saying, but I believe in them. And so I'm facing over here and doing it. I have a friend, Jerry Boxer is his name. I call him Shanghai because he spent a lot of time in Shanghai. He's now living in Thailand with his third Thai wife. I met him in The Hague in a place called Kiss My Sweet. And he was just hanging out looking at people, and I came in and he looked at me and I looked at him, and we were sitting together in a couple of minutes, and we've been lovely, lovely friends ever since. Jerry would come in and sit and look at my paintings for a long, long time before he would say anything. And the thing that he constantly harped on with me is he said, Toby, he said, when I was painting, I would paint for 5 minutes and I'd look for 55 minutes. And then I'd paint for 5 and look for 55. He said, you paint for 55 and look for 5. And I said, well, that's not really true, Jerry. I paint for 60. And I'm doing my looking while I'm painting. But, so for me to step back like this and look at it, that's about as far as I go. And painting for me is an experience, and it's also a passion. I haven't mentioned the word synesthesia. Synesthesia is the connection that exists between the various disciplines. The painting, the visual, the music which is beginning to happen, the language, the poetry which will become a part of it. And often when I'm doing a performance or when I'm at a showing of my paintings, I will ask, is there anyone here who would like to dance? And do an improv with me. And sometimes there is and sometimes there isn't. I had no idea I'd have so much fun. This is really fun. Anybody else want to come up so there'll be a kind of duet thing happening? No? Okay. So I'm just dealing with sounds and colors and dynamics and rhythms. I can already tell that we're going to have fun. Okay. There we go. There we go. Beautiful. My wife's sister. All right.
The dances we got.
Okay, here we go. For to your open. Okay, Jehovah for the sa. For the sa, this urge to the po. Ta 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 e pa 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 la 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 pa 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 oh oh button 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 being a musician, everything that I've written, I've thought, for me the important thing is, and it's been an effort since almost since the age of 40, is to make music become poetry, which becomes then music. And I had just a good enough musical background so I could get away with that. And I just, for a quick look, a lot of my poetry was scored like music because I was thinking of music. And do you believe in God? I do. I held hands with him the other day, and we laughed together, God and I together. And God and I played tennis once, and he's got a hell of a serve. And I've seen him roll down a mountainside, foaming with delight, and I've caught fish in him and seen him dance across the heavens trailing light. God served me bouillabaisse at the Waldorf, and I've served him burgers and french fries at a crummy drive-in. I happen to know that God digs jazz and rock and roll. Yeah, he grooves. And I've made love with God, gentle love, and watched him multiply. Watched him multiply. Tiply. Tiply watched him multiply. Tiply. Tiply. And die. That was... This is called The One. And by the way, this is music, and you'll find that my text may be entirely unrelated to Chuck's, as his may be entirely unrelated to mine. Sometimes they'll come together in a fugue form, other times contrapuntally. So if you want to listen to one voice, and like you do with a string quartet, you might listen to cello for a while, you know, or the first violin to get some sense of the form and melody. So you may, and if you do listen to one voice at the exclusion of the other, then you'll hear totally different texts than the one that will come to you much more subtly.
I'll have to just add one more thing. I first heard this poetry almost 35 years ago at the community school where Toby was a regular yearly visitor, creating a chorus out of 30 kids and in an hour giving them words and phrases and directing them in performance like this. And that was my first introduction to this. And it's kind of haunted me, and when I came back to the area, the first event I saw was these guys all reading, and I went, oh, someday I want to read with them. I've been waiting for 35 years to do this. And one of the things about these pieces to me is that if you imagine that you're a person whose hearing turns on and off in the same way that our voices turn on and off, this is something like what you might hear. And it's never clear, and it's taken years and years for me to get it, that all conversations are in fact like these performances.
Yes.
Thank you, that was great.
Yeah.
Good clarification. And so now we got back together again. We were separated for, let's see, over 20 years, I think. Chuck came up to me at the gym and said, aren't you
that guy? I
aren't you
can't
that guy,
remember.
Toby? And we hugged, and we've been hugging ever since. The one being, this will tell you this much, the one being the one moment in which we always exist, which is an eternity, and which is a moment. We are searching for the end when we should be welcoming the beginning.
We are searching
The beginning
for the end
of the beginning
when we should be welcoming
of this day.
the beginning.
We are searching
The beginning
for the end
of the ending
when we should be welcoming
of this day.
the beginning.
We are searching
We are
for the
searching
end.
for the end.
So many beginnings
The beginning
and endings
of the endings.
in this and every day.
So many beginnings and endings.
So many
In this and every day.
beginnings and endings
So many
in this and every day.
beginnings and endings.
So many
Yet none the same. None the same.
beginnings and endings.
It's transcendence.
Yet none the same.
I believe
It's transcendence.
the ease with which
The
one
ease
moment
with which
fades into the next.
One moment fades into the next.
Which becomes,
Which
the
becomes
one.
The one.
We are searching
We are searching for the end
for the end
when we should be welcoming
when we should
the beginning.
be welcoming the beginning.
Welcoming the
beginning. So many beginnings.
So many beginnings in this
In this
and every day.
and every day.
Yet none the same.
The same.
And yet none the same.
It's transcendence, I believe.
I believe it's transcendence.
The ease
I believe.
with which one moment fades
The ease
into the next.
with which one moment
Which becomes the one
fades
always.
into the next.
The one
Which becomes the one.
which becomes the one.
Only the one.
It's transcendence.
I believe
It's transcendence, I believe.
The ease with which
The ease
one moment
with which
fades
one moment
into the next.
fades
Which becomes
into the next.
the one.
Which becomes
Always the one.
the one.
Only the one.
Always the one.
Don't look ahead.
Don't look
Don't look behind.
ahead.
You'll only see the you
Don't look behind.
of that time.
You'll only see the you
Which is the one.
of that time.
Of this time.
Which is the one. The one
I knew it.
of this time.
Don't look ahead.
Don't look
Don't look behind.
ahead.
You'll only see
Don't look behind.
the you
You'll only see
of that
the
time,
you
which is the one
of that time.
of this time.
Which is the one of this time. I knew it.
I felt it.
I experienced it.
And
I
I
lost
it.
And I lost it. Lost it because
Lost it.
I was searching
Because
for the end.
I was searching.
When
For the end.
I should have been.
I was searching.
Lost it because I was
Lost it
searching
because
for the
I
end.
was searching for the end.
When I should have been.
Welcoming.
The beginning.
Welcoming.
The beginning.
Blind to beauty.
Blind
Of the moment.
to the beauty of the moment.
Don't look ahead.
Don't look
Don't look behind.
ahead.
You only see.
Don't look behind.
Blind to the beauty.
Blind to the
moment.
beauty of the moment.
The beauty.
Of the moment.
And blind to transcendence.
The beauty of the
Which
moment.
could take you there.
Which would take you there as tenderly as you could understand. I came home to my wife, I should say, and I said, I wrote myself a birthday poem, and she said, well, let me hear it. I said, it's just a little poem, dear. It's nothing that I want to repeat. She said, I want to hear your poem. So I read it to her. It's called Dear Ma, Dear Dad, and it was scored like rhythms, and actually it's the first poem in this book here. Dear Ma, dear Dad, you're the only loves I ever had. And I don't think that's very bad. Very bad, very bad. Dear Ma, dear Dad. Dear Ma, dear Dad, did I do something to make you sad? Make you sad? I did what you told me. What you told me. She was crying halfway through, and she said, why don't you do it? And I said, what do you mean do? I just wrote a poem, that's all. Do what? She said, well, whatever you do, but get out of that business, real estate business. It's killing you inch by inch every day you go in, and become that idealistic, creative soul that I fell in love with on the campus at the University of Washington. And I said, well, dear, I don't know what I want to do, whether I want to write I can't be a poet. I mean, I'm 40 years old. I couldn't make a living. Poets who start at 20 don't make livings. And she said, look, you've done a good job for 15 years supporting us. We got married in 1950, and this was 65, on my 40th birthday, as I said. She said, I'll support the family, whether it's writing poetry, whether it's singing, whatever it is. Find yourself, find that person that I fell in love with. Sounded good to me. We had 3 children, because, I said, we've got mortgages, we got doctor's bills, Blue Cross. She said, well, I'll take care of that. You take care of who you are, or who you need to be, again, for all of us. We called our kids together and we said, we can't guarantee college educations. We can't guarantee 10-speed bikes, but it's going to be a much more interesting life than what we dealt with. So that was cool with them. I went out and got a bottle of champagne, and the 5 of us toasted our future, and I took out my real estate license and threw it in the fireplace on my 40th birthday. I couldn't have given myself a better gift. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be here right now, that's for damn sure. I started writing on my 40th birthday. When I was 41 and a half, I was supporting my family as a full-time poet. Who would like to come up and do one with me? Come on up. We'd love to have you come up and do one with me.
Thank me.
All right. This is one that I did in 1980, and I just came across it the other day, and we'll just I'll take a line, you take a line. It's called Collectives. I'll do this and then you do that. Yeah, we go down this way. That's it, yeah. Collectives. A murder of crow.
A quandary of bedbugs.
A chowder of cats.
A puncture of bees.
A leap of leopards.
A piddling of pigeons.
A sloth of bears.
An empathy of swine.
rafter of turkeys,
a convent of vultures,
a smack of jellyfish,
a derelict of squid,
a skulk of foxes,
a digest of snakes,
a labor of moles,
a famine of condors,
a peep of chickens,
a faux pas of cockroaches,
a crash of rhinoceros,
a gallivant of rabbits,
a paddling of ducks,
a generation of vipers,
a siege of herons,
a voice of turtles,
a rag of colts,
a gestation of cells,
a drift of
a
hogs,
squeeze of sponges,
a charm of finches,
a harem of humans,
a trip of goats,
a haw of
a
hyenas,
knot of roads,
an orgy of mates,
a shrewdness of apes,
a suite of bunnybees,
a
honeybees,
parliament of
a
owls,
prick of porcupines,
a troop of
a
kangaroos,
jounce of
a
wombats,
gaggle of geese,
a legacy of
a
worms,
pride of lions,
a magnitude of mastodons,
a watch of nightingales,
a nobility of swans,
a muster of peacocks,
pebble of mice,
an exultation of larks,
a closure of dodos. Thank you, that was really fun.
That was great.
You should all try it, it's very fun.
It's funny, I was just, I'm working on an autobiography. I'm going to reach over here for a minute. And before you came, I would just happen to be on this page. And I'm just going to want to read a little bit of it. It says, since painting has become an integral part of my creative life, I've experienced an increasing difficulty in getting on-campus invitations. This is an age of specialization, so when I present myself as a synesthesiologist, my word, one who engages in the cross-referencing of many art disciplines, I'm looked upon with awe, confusion, and suspicion. If I'm in the art department, they will refer me to someone in music. If I visit the English department, they will refer me to art. And if I'm in music, they will suggest drama or dance. All departments have their own agendas. So I had thought that as a painter, my poetry would become recognized. Through my painting, it hasn't worked out that way. And here I go. There. Here, and fill this space in. Being lots of G's. There's something holy, something sacred in being spontaneous. We've dealt with painting, and I think I've made a case for the fact that my painting and my music and my poetry are inseparable. One of my quests and goals is to make music out of poetry, cross the fine border that separates the spoken word from music, so that the spoken word becomes music. Well, here's Symphony number 1. Maybe I'll find that page, that first page that I did. Here it is. There's the page that I have this painting. I have this painting somewhere in the garage. It's awful, but that was the first day I painted. I worked with that line, and I think the line on the following page was also interesting. I'm very much obsessed with time. And that's strange because I don't believe in time. I think that there is now and all the other nows. And I think we only live in the now. There's no such thing as, well, a poem of mine says, life is now and never was before or after. In fact, as you came in, you saw that sculpture, that middle sculpture. This moment is all that we have. So this was called, this was the Time Symphony. This is a symphony for voice orchestra. The words in this composition are treated very much as individual notes of music. Each decade of my life, I've always said, this will be the most creative decade of my life. And it's always worked out that way. I don't know how much longer I can get away with it, but it's working. This was the map, the threshold of my life. And this has been very, very accurate, with the exception of the last couple of lines. So I'm just going to read you what is, and it's scored, rhythmically scored up there. In the book, it's not rhythmically scored, but it is scored as a duet. And I'll just read the one poem, I'm on the Threshold. I am on the threshold of the moment of birth, of the moment of sight, of the moment of touch, of the moment of the first tear. The moment of laughter, the moment of embarrassment, the moment of anger, the moment of the first love. Moment of rejection, moment of success, moment of failure, moment of the first disaster, of frustration, of crisis, of marriage, of the first child, moment of divorce, moment of loneliness, moment of peace, moment of the first illness, the moment of truth, the moment of anxiety, the moment of longing, the moment of the first falling, of the moment of hopelessness, of the moment of senility, of the moment of death, of the moment of the first returning. I am on the threshold of every moment, 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 every moment. I am on the threshold. Language deserves to be able to sing. There are times. There are times such as these,
There are times,
when I sit among them,
such as these
attempting
times,
to understand
when I sit among them,
what is being said,
attempting to understand
without understanding
what is being said,
a word of it.
without understanding a word
Without
of it,
understanding a word of it.
There are times
such as these
There are
times,
times
when I sit among them.
attempting to understand,
There are times
such as these
when
times,
I sit among them,
attempting to understand
What is being
what
said.
is being said.
is being said.
There are times. There are times.
Such as these times, when I sit among them, attempting to understand.
Attempting to understand.
What is being said.
There are times
There are times
without understanding a word
Without
of it.
understanding a word of it.
There are times
There
There
are
are times
without understanding a word of it.